Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go out to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go out to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here, How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go out to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Oh, is Mike hot? I don't think it is hot. Today's date, December 19th, 2020, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, I did as I say, we are working on the language here, so there might be a cuss word here and there. But today we might be showing things of a graphic nature, which we try to avoid, but hey, that's the world. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, guys, welcome. So if you're not out there right now trying to shop for last minute gifts, because I'm trying to avoid every shopping mall possible right now because it is the weekend before Christmas, thanks for watching. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Well, let's talk about the pandemic relief. The help is on the way from Joe Biden, and this is the information we got so far.
May be close to a deal on a relief package that would help millions of Americans impacted by the economic downturn, as well as businesses struggling to stay afloat. Mary Bruce has the very latest on where things stand right now. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, after failing for months to reach an agreement, this morning congressional leaders are nearing a deal that could provide much needed relief to struggling Americans hit hard by this pandemic. Republican leader Mitch McConnell overnight saying they are close and that they are going to get this done. Now, the $900 billion compromise bill that's on the table would provide $300 in weekly federal unemployment benefits and $600 direct payment to most Americans. That's roughly half of the amount of the check that went out in the first round. This bill would also extend protections against evictions and provide billions of dollars for.
Okay, I gotta stop it right here. The reason why I gotta stop it right here because, guys, this has been almost, let's see, the last time we got a stimulus package, the last time that anybody got any assistance was what, back in March, March of this year. So the reason why I stopped it right there, because again, this is two sides arguing for nearly 9 months, and this is the deal that they're okay with. Like, example, an extra $300 a week for unemployment benefits. If I could say that word, that'd be great. $600 stimulus check for those who make incomes up to $75,000. Extended protections against evictions. Billions for small businesses and vaccine distribution. I'm a little concerned because, again, keep in mind that I don't know anybody that's really running into this issue of needing assistance, especially if you've worked in, like for here in Tennessee, 90% of our income is tourism. So if you're part of the entertainment industry, musicians, worked in bars, things of that nature, it's been a little difficult for you to get by. I cannot imagine after 9 months you're being told that a $600 stimulus check is possible for you. Most rent in Tennessee is, the last time I checked, is well over $1,000 and still climbing. The simple fact of the matter is just that a $600 check is what you get versus the $1,200 that you got back in March and May. the reason why I have an issue with this is because, again, two parts really. Number one, unemployment benefits, when they were getting actually $800 and $900, actually helped people. Because at the time, it wasn't they were being able to make ends meet, but an extra $300, anybody who's ever had unemployment benefits, an extra $300 a week is not going to cut it. Not just when you're trying to cover expenses like food, utilities, stuff like that. That $300 is going to be gone. Much like that $600 stimulus check is going to be gone too. Because where does an extra $600 go to? And I do get the fact of the extended protections against evictions. That needs to happen at this point. Just because because it ends on December 31st, which means that anybody that wasn't able to pay rent because they lost their job or their job was closed due to COVID, was actually protected, because under that moratorium kept evictions from happening just because folks simply couldn't pay because there were no jobs out there. It's just the way of the world. I get that. The last part, which bothered me, billions for small businesses and vaccine distribution. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to talk about vaccines in a little bit, but I like the fact, but we say again, billions for small business. If they're talking about that crappy PPP loan, payment protection, I never can say this without losing my mind. Paycheck Protection Program. Number one, alliteration aside, who the hell came up with this name is still beyond me. Number two, it doesn't work. Think about the stories we picked up on the previous podcast about payment protection programs. Ruth Chris, a multi-million dollar corporation, got a PPP loan. Steak Shack got again, corporations that don't need money got these loans. Even churches. Joel Osteen and his, they can't call it, let's just call it what it is. It's a franchise. His church/franchise got a PPP loan. All these corporations got PPP loans, and yet no one can explain why. Even more so that the actual small businesses that apply for these loans didn't get them because corporations got them first. And they want to keep giving money because they didn't say it here, but I think billions for small business means that we're still giving money to this failed program and not enough to vaccine distribution. So again, it makes no sense that after 9 months, this is the plan that we're about to agree with. I don't understand Democrats because, again, Bernie Sanders, I hate to keep bringing it up, but Bernie Sanders had the right idea. When he first said $2,000 direct payments monthly to American citizens and $1,500 additional to those that have kids, that should have been it from Jump Street. Democrats aren't pushing for it, and Republicans are obviously for corporations, which again should be fairly obvious by now because they were pushing for COVID liability for businesses because there is going to be people who have to take that risk of going into work and catching COVID only because the alternative is you don't have any money and you can chancely lose everything. That's a hell of a decision if you ask me. But again, this is still being argued at this time because, again, since they can't agree on since the funny thing is that Democrats and Republicans cannot agree on a congressional budget, they are trying to avoid shutdown, in which now the deadline for that shutdown is midnight Sunday night. I just don't think it's going to be worth it for this plan. If I'm giving my 2 cents about this, I think that plan is crappy. Nobody can get by on a $600 check. Nobody can get by on $300 more on top of their additional unemployment benefits. It's time to finally help people is what they need to do. That's just the bottom line of it all. So, moving right along, guys, I do want to talk about the story of this woman who I did post this on Facebook and my Facebook earlier this week, but I did wanted to post this about cops raiding the wrong home and that how definitely south it went. Before I do show this is very graphic, so viewer discretion is definitely advised.
Our story, an exclusive investigation into Chicago police handcuffing a woman naked while they conducted a bad raid on bad information at her home.
There is public outcry tonight calling out Mayor Lori Lightfoot and her city law department for trying to bury the body camera video of the raid. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini live outside City Hall. Dave, they lost that battle, but they sure did spin today.
They sure did try to, Brad. It is the body camera video the city did not want you to see. They even tried to stop us from airing it last night, but we fought back and exposed it all anyway.
Chicago Police Sergeant Mark, go. Go.
I felt so violated. Here it is, this man who's walking up to me and putting me in handcuffs, and I have no clothes on.
And you're just standing there.
And I'm just standing there. I mean, terrified, humiliated, not even understanding why in that moment that this is happening to me.
I watched that video and I put myself in that poor woman's place.
What is going on?
There were big guns and guns with lights and scopes on them.
And thinking about somebody breaking into your home, you have no idea who they are, in the middle of the night.
The mayor reacting today to our CBS 2 investigators exclusive, exposing the wrong raid on Anjanette Young's home and how she was handcuffed naked in a room full of police officers with 9 body cameras rolling, all men. Then she gets a blanket, but the blanket just keeps sliding open. More humiliation.
If we messed up, we got to fess up and we got to clean it up.
That's not what the city did last night. The law department tried to do everything but fess up. They filed an emergency motion with a federal judge to conceal all body camera videos and kill our CBS 2 story about Anjanette Young. The city demanded we remove any and all postings that contain this confidential video, claiming it violated a court order.
This case was litigated in federal court. The federal judge put in place an order. There's allegations that she has violated that.
I feel like that they didn't want us to have this video because they knew how bad it was.
So CBS 2 fought back and aired the body camera footage that had been kept under wraps for nearly 2 years. The judge ultimately denied the city's motion to try and stop us. What makes it different about seeing it?
Seeing it makes it real. Seeing it validates that I didn't make this story up.
And now, since we aired the video, the story is making national news, and Mayor Lightfoot says she has talked to her city law department, a department busy fighting Young's claims that she was wrongly raided.
What I've directed my law department to do is, with respect to this one, if there is a pending case, get that case resolved.
I've been living here for 4 years and nobody lives here but me. Okay, you don't have to shout. I don't have to shout. This is ridiculous. You got me in handcuffs. I'm naked. You kicked my house in, and I keep telling you, you got the wrong place. Oh my God, this cannot be right. How is this legal?
They knew that they had did something wrong. They knew that the way they treated me was not right.
Now, we found the real target of that raid should have been easily found because he was on home confinement and wearing an electronic monitoring device, a tracking device. He lived right next door. No one, we are told no one, has yet to be disciplined for this botched raid.
Yet again, Dave, CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini, the seeming cover-up, and now today the mayor sidestepping questions about trying to quash the story. Then she had the temerity to call it old news, the dichotomy of saying it's old news, but we're going to go to federal court so Chicago can't see it. Well, in part it aged because they fought its release for so long. So since this 2019 raid, CPD has changed its applicable policies so this doesn't happen again. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure, Brad. It's true. They did make some changes after our 2-year-long series. They put some new policies in place, more supervision. At least two supervisors now have to sign off on a raid. They're making sure now that all body cameras are, at least two body cameras are being worn on raids. They're usually done by specialized units who don't wear body cameras, but now they're making 2 uniform officers be a part of those raids. But here's the problem. These changes aren't working. We've already exposed numerous raids since the new policy went in place where A, they either didn't have those extra body cameras, or B, they still raided the wrong home and didn't check out the story. You just can't believe what a confidential or John Doe informant tells you. You've got to check it out.
CBS 2 investigator.
Crazy, isn't it? I mean, it is amazing at this point to where you imagine, and I said this for my Facebook post earlier this week, imagine you are just simply coming home after a long day, you are changing clothes, the police kick the door in, you're naked, guns are drawn on you, you at this point have fight or flight response, your adrenaline's up, you are trying your best to literally trying to really ascertain the situation, but it's kind of hard to do that when you got 9 or 10 cops in there, armed and drawn at the hip, and literally sitting there trying and literally just yelling at you, and there you are, humiliated, naked, and then they're trying to have a conversation with you. I don't blame that woman, because again, in her mind, it's shades of Breonna Taylor. It's imagine seeing cops coming in and you're naked, and it's like the last thing you're thinking of is this my last night on earth? And so I cannot blame them. I cannot blame her. I blame the fact that now that, thankfully she's alive, thankfully she's safe, but at the same time, it's like, where's the accountability? Now keep in mind, this was back in 2019, but the mayor and their law office and Chicago PD all tried to bury this story. They tried to bury the story, and as the reporter said at the end of the video, the person they were looking for was next door and on an ankle monitor. So again, and they didn't say that anybody ever was reprimanded. They didn't say any cops were suspended or law enforcement management was actually removed or fired or suspended. They didn't say any of that. But then there again, you have this woman who's now trying to literally get her name cleared. I can't blame her for that. And even more so, there's actually the follow-up story of this that I'm glad that she's trying to fight it.
Out from that frightening police raid at the wrong home in Chicago. Officers busting down the door of an innocent woman. And this morning, we're hearing from Anjanette Young about the incident. Alex Perez joined us with more from Chicago.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Anjanette Young says she knew immediately police had the wrong house, but no matter how many times she told them, she says they simply would not believe her. We should warn you, the video is difficult to watch.
Overnight, the innocent woman seen in this disturbing police body cam video speaking out.
They didn't kill me that night because God was covering me. You got the wrong house. I live alone.
Chicago social worker Anjanette Young was changing clothes after coming home from work when police barged in carrying out a warrant at her home.
I ran into my living room, tried to grab something to cover myself. And before, I could do anything, the police were in. The room was dark, so I could just see lights and scopes on guns pointed at me.
Handcuffing her as she stood there naked, humiliated, and terrified.
Tell me what's going on. I was scared into compliance. Like, I just did what they said to me because I was afraid if I did anything or made any moves that they would shoot me. They had guns pointed at me. I feared for my life that night.
The incident unfolding back in February of 2019, but the video just now surfacing. Turns out police were working with an incorrect address. After about 2 minutes, police covering Young with a blanket. The police superintendent and Chicago mayor promising change.
I have an obligation to make that wrong right. It's been painful, and upsetting.
This comes after Young and her attorney accused Mayor Lori Lightfoot's administration of trying to block release of the video, initially denying a Freedom of Information request Young made for the video, and even taking a local station to court to try to stop them from broadcasting the video. Lightfoot says she was unaware of what city attorneys were attempting to do.
It is quite literally in every single corner of our country.
Activists like those at Campaign Zero fighting to change the law and implement ways to hold police and other officials accountable.
So cities and states have to adopt comprehensive warrant legislation that restricts militarized tactics.
And Jeanette Young hopes her case will bring change to how raids are carried out and says she will live with the trauma of the incident for the rest of her life.
I don't take it lightly that I'm sitting here in this moment in 2020 being able to say what happened to me, but I very much embrace and relate to Breonna Taylor. My incident happened before hers. So when it happened to her, I cried for days, but I was also very thankful.
And Young says the entire ordeal lasted about 40 minutes. She and her attorney plan to file a lawsuit against the city. Guys?
Next tonight, the police raid outrage in Chicago.
And again, it is amazing at this point that, again, like I was like, this was back in February of 2019. Imagine the entire city trying to bury their mistake. And I mean, like I said, I feel for the woman because she's traumatized. Now it's like, you don't think she's going to be worried about who's going to come through her door? You don't think she's going to have possible PTSD from this? And again, Chicago itself, Mayor Lightfoot and the superintendent for Chicago PD, and from friends and cousins who have always told me the Chicago PD, they're worse than the NYPD. I mean, as far as being racist, corrupt, and overall against black people, that's straight from people that I know that have lived there and cousins that I have lived there. So Mayor Lightfoot may have a hard time being reelected just because, again, for this to be a year since this has happened and there have been no terminations, no suspensions, no nothing, amazes me because how in the world do you, like I said before, the person they were looking for was next door and on an ankle monitor. How do you miss that? I just, somebody tell me this. It sounds like to me there was a major, big ass oversight on this. And yet, nobody itself is facing any type of nobody's not facing any type of issue. I don't understand it, except for the simple fact of the matter is, Lightfoot may not be around as the next Chicago mayor. Because if anybody decided to run now, this would be perfect. What are you guys are saying? Wow, February 2019. Yeah, Angela. Going on a year. This guy put out. Yeah, Vaughn. Oh, fuck them. They won't truly punish them. You know what? I used to argue against you, Vaughn, when I said, yeah, something may happen, but considering this is Chicago and this has been a year, and the mayor and their law office tried to bury this video, I know change is possible, but it's a little hard to see that now. It really is. Just because the fact of the matter is, I'm glad she lawyered up. I hope she sues the city, but you're right. It's hard to see any punishment come from this, just because of how hard they had to fight. And kudos to that news station, by the way, that sat there and pretty much said, "F the mayor, F the law, F the PD. We're gonna show this story." And I had to give that news station credit for that. But moving right along, guys, there is some other news, especially in the case of Daniel Prude. If you don't remember Daniel Prude, he was the young man, as you can see right there, that had the bag over his head and was butt naked, and they had him on the ground, and he couldn't breathe. So remember when I sit there, and so if you probably remember from my previous podcast, the mayor had fired the police chief. I'm sorry, I won't say fired. She encouraged his retirement. But anyway, a story coming out, the former police chief is accusing the city mayor of pressuring him to lie about the events following the death of Daniel Prude. He wanted, and to just summarize this entire paragraph that you guys are seeing, what the former police chief LaRon Singletary wanted to do. The mayor basically wanted her, the mayor at the time, who's also under investigation for campaign fraud, by the way, she wanted the chief of police to basically lie for her. That she did not know about, the botched arrest, that she did not know about the bag being used, that she didn't know about the fact that, because at first, the mayor, that's still under indictment, by the way, claimed that the police chief told her that the deceased died of a PCP overdose, which was not true. She also downplayed the events before she saw the video. And again, this is where the police chief came into place and said, well, I wasn't going to lie about that because the mayor did know. And of course, the mayors at the time did pressure him to retire. And he says, I would say pressured him to an uneasy retirement. But because this is all being investigated, he's coming forward and saying, well, the mayor basically told me to lie for her and I wouldn't do it. Hence why I didn't have a job anymore. So, with that being said, guys, this story itself just keeps getting more twisted and more twisted because, again, this is why a lot of people turn around and talk about defund the police and that the police needs more civilian oversight because there is so much corruption from the mayor's office to the law enforcement's offices, and they seem to be surrounding these deaths of black people. And Daniel Prude is no different. I still, he deserves justice. Those officers that put that bag over his head and had him lie face down to where he couldn't breathe anymore, they all should be tried for murder. They really should be. And the mayor's office should definitely be a part of it because, again, they all had knowledge of it. So it just adds up. I mean, if you think about, the Senate woman in Chicago, you think about Daniel Prude, you think about George Floyd, we could keep going down this entire list, and I hate the fact that this list is growing. And yet, people don't understand that law enforcement needs an enema. Law enforcement does need to be defunded. I could go, like I said, you guys have heard me talk many times about about police, about defund the police, and the reason and how to defund the police. And trust me, I've had law enforcement officers come up to me on my podcast and say, I saw your podcast, and you guys don't understand how hard of a job we have. Well, I'm sorry, but you chose to protect and serve. You didn't know. You think it was going to be a cakewalk? That's all I'm saying. But move right along, guys. Of course, cybersecurity. Like I said before, this is how you know in a Trump administration everything is going downhill. Well, keep in mind, Trump had a cybersecurity director that sat there and said that America is primed for a massive attack from our foreign counterparts. Trump fired him, and then this happened.
Cyber attack as federal officials warn that a likely Russian-based hack has penetrated deep into U.S. national security infrastructure. The breach is widespread, and there are growing concerns tonight about what may come next. CBS's Catherine Herridge has the very latest reporting.
A stark warning tonight as hackers thought to be linked to Russian intelligence are now feared to be deep inside American infrastructure networks across the U.S. government and including the nation's top nuclear laboratory. U.S. officials called the hack a grave risk.
This is an attack on the United States. It's an attack on our infrastructure, our government, our private sector.
CBS News has learned evidence of the hack has been detected at the Department of Energy, which maintains the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile and operates the Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico. It's unclear what, if any, damage has been done. While Vladimir Putin's government denies responsibility, the evidence continues to mount.
The keys of the kingdom have been taken.
This hack gave a foreign adversary the capability to destroy government networks or turn off critical infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not as easy as flipping a light switch, but they absolutely did have access into many sensitive infrastructure sites.
The hackers made their move as early as March, breaking into SolarWinds, a Texas-based software company that serves government agencies and many Fortune 500 companies. But officials now say the hackers also used other methods to breach the networks, making the hack even wider in scope.
We have to imagine that they're everywhere.
Short time ago, the Department of Energy issued a statement saying investigators have identified malware on its business networks, but so far there's no evidence the hack impacted nuclear weapons security.
Oh, so again, it's amazing. Your cybersecurity director told you that, hey, America is primed to get hacked. You fired him, and then they discover you've been hacked. Again, it's one of those things, like I said before, as a guy that works in IT, guys, I have said it before, there's no such thing as a 100% security system. But the greatest exploit to any security system is people. Because trust me, the way these hacks actually, the way these hacks actually start, guys, usually with people, and there are multiple ways that they can actually get in the systems. And I wouldn't be surprised if Russia is a part of it, because let's be honest, they probably are. Especially with Putin always denying everything. But I wouldn't be surprised. The simple fact, man, like I said before, what's being done about it? If nothing is being done about it, then this is still going to happen. We don't know how far they've gotten. But let's be honest, the fear of it all is always if they got to nuclear launches, nuclear areas, power plants, things of that nature that could actually shut us down. And trust me, they can do so because everything is connected. But America does need a cybersecurity overhaul. So we're going to see how that story goes from there. But going back to also the major things we need to talk about, guys. COVID. There's just no way to get around this, and right now, California is almost becoming a black site.
In Southern California, hospitals are at their breaking point. Too many coronavirus patients, and as of Thursday, no ICU beds left. Just outside of Los Angeles, the Arrowhead Regional Medical Center in San Bernardino, so overwhelmed, they've had to treat COVID-19 patients inside these surge tents.
Look around. This is not ideal.
All 48 ICU beds full, the majority COVID patients. The relentless pace, the deaths, the suffering, taking a toll.
It's probably the hardest year I've ever had as a nurse, as nurses, and we still have our families and our loved ones to worry about.
Dr. Rodney Borger, who oversees the emergency department, says this is the worst crisis he's faced in his 25-year career.
The thing that keeps me up is when there's a time where we have to decide who gets something and who does not.
So if things don't change, you're concerned?
If things don't change, we're going to probably be rationing care, and that's something that's very concerning.
That's a decision no doctor wants to have to make.
That's a decision nobody wants to make.
The state reporting more than 147,000 new coronavirus cases in just 3 days, activating its mass fatality plan, ordering 5,000 body bags, 60 refrigerated trailers on standby as makeshift morgues.
That means that we expect to have more dead bodies than we have spaces in morgues for them. That frightens me, and it should frighten you.
In Los Angeles, where the mayor is in quarantine after his 9-year-old tested positive, officials say an average of 2 people are dying every hour. The number of patients hospitalized across LA County tripling over the past month to more than 5,000.
We're getting crushed. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. We are getting crushed.
In some areas, emergency rooms so crowded that ambulances had to wait hours to offload patients, some on gurneys outdoors waiting. The entire San Francisco Bay Area is now effectively locked down. 98% of the state's population ordered to stay at home. Colleen Cirillo is a traveling nurse who arrived to California in May. She's exhausted from all the deaths and wants people to take the virus seriously.
It's really frustrating because, like, today I lost my patient, and it's just like this, and so that was somebody's family member, and for people to still believe that this isn't real, it's just like, I don't know, I take offense to it, and I would take a greater offense if that was my family member.
Crazy, isn't it? That it's literally and figuratively, and Kelly, you took the words out of my mouth, and people still think it's a hoax. Keep in mind, Tennessee was number 1 in COVID cases. We are now number 2 because of California and a surge of, as I said before, 147,000 new cases of coronavirus in less than 36 hours. It's not a hoax, people. COVID is real. And again, even then, California is on a complete shutdown. And Tennessee right now, if I had to take a wild guess, Broadway is probably packed right now with people. Some of them wearing masks, a lot of them aren't. I'm almost certain of that. But again, And this is the reason why COVID is still an issue. This is the reason why COVID in the U.S. is still an issue. It's the reason why a lot of red states will become black states. What I mean by that is CDC trackers out there basically states in terms of, from certain colors. Now, red being severe states. Now, Tennessee is a red state right now. It's a severe case. California is now a black site, which means that is a more than extreme case of COVID because of the amount of people there, and the ICU is full. Tennessee's not too far off. According to the CDC, I think the number of ICU beds that are available in Tennessee is less than 10%. So we're not too far off from California at this point. But this is the reason why people sit there and say, wear a mask, social distancing, go out early if you need to, avoid large crowds, don't travel if you have to. But again, until we actually get this whole until the whole U.S. on lockdown, and we issue a mask mandate goes across all parts, it's just not going to happen anytime soon. Especially in this case, I have to give my girlfriend credit for this because my girlfriend pointed this out to me last night about the story, and this just goes to show you how the U.S. is very lenient versus every other place. Now, in this story, an 18-year-old college student from Georgia was sentenced to 4 months in prison in the Cayman Islands after breaking the British Caribbean territory's COVID-19 protocol while visiting her boyfriend for a jet skiing competition. You cannot get any whiter than this. Now, of course, keep in mind, different countries have different protocols, but they are not as lenient as the U.S. Because when she did land, she was given another COVID-19 test, and she was asked to remain in isolation for 2 weeks. Kind of a standard travel thing if you are traveling, that you do have to remain in isolation for 2 weeks wherever you go. So, instead of actually following the directions she was given, she decided to go attend her boyfriend's jet ski competition 2 days later. The way she got out of this was that she contacted the offices who handled the monitoring, because keep in mind, they also put a monitoring anklet on her. And the thing about it is, she actually called them to actually have it loosened to where she could get it off. Her boyfriend came to pick her up, and they went to the jet ski competition. They did not have masks on, and she violated protocol, and they got caught. And so the actual and so the Cayman Island authorities sat there and not only arrested them, but turned around, and at first they were going to sentence them. She was initially sentenced to 40 hours of community service and ordered to pay a fine. But because she violated COVID quarantines, they decided that they were going to up the alley, and therefore she was sentenced to 4 months in prison, right along with her boyfriend. Now, as the story reads, because I was reading this. Actually, I was listening to this last night, and as they're reading it, she was immediately taken to prison. And according to her family, she's allowed to call them daily. She cries every time she calls home. She hasn't been able to eat since they put her in prison. And then the family's like, I truly believe she needed to get in trouble because she did something wrong. I don't believe she needed to go to I'm sorry. The grandmother, and let me repeat this again. I truly believe she needed to get in trouble because she did something wrong. I don't believe she needed to go to prison for 4 months for one breach. And of course, right now, the family is working with government officials to basically see about getting them released. Okay, so let's point something out here, shall we? I love the fact of how they're trying to make this story seem like, oh, it's just an honest mistake. It's an honest mistake that she decided to go, to get out of this and go to her boyfriend's jet ski competition. Again, it just sounds so white the more I keep saying this. Again, you broke protocol. And like I said before, these people who go around right now who are breaking protocol with COVID-19 in the U.S., do that in another country and see how long you last. Because I'm going to be honest, in some areas, she got off easy. Because in some areas, you break protocol, some countries shoot you on sight. They tell you off the bat. because you are such a risk and you risk the other populations, you will be shot on sight. Thailand is one of them. Brazil is one of them. Brazil has already sat there and said, you break our protocol and you try to run, you are shot on sight. No exceptions. And the thing in the Cayman Islands, which again, I don't know how many people can go to the Cayman Islands in this day and age, especially in this economy, but the fact that she went and all she had to do was remain in quarantine for 2 weeks, but decided, the rules don't apply to me. I'm going to go do what I want. And yes, you have to face the consequences of another country. If another country says you got to serve 4 months in prison, get used to 4 months in prison. Now, would that change? I don't know. I mean, it could be the point to where she might, get released and she may never come to the Cayman Islands again. I just think the whole story is crazy because she brought this on herself and they're trying to make it seem like it's an innocent mistake. It's not. You don't know whether or not, because your test came back negative, but you still didn't remain in quarantine for 2 weeks, you are still a walking potential biohazard to spread the virus. It's the fact of the matter, it's like, as Kelly said, she didn't realize her privilege didn't work down there. It's ignorance. It is blatant ignorance. That is the only way I can sit there and say this. It's almost like the rules don't apply. And who can we blame for this? We can blame Dorito. Why do we blame Dorito? Because Dorito has sat there and said he will not be getting vaccinated until it's recommended by his medical team. Think about this for a second. Dorito, who caught the coronavirus, who was at Walter Reed Medical, got experimental treatment to where he cleared coronavirus, to where he cleared COVID. And now, because the vaccine is out, and we've seen President Barack Obama get it, Bill Clinton get it, former President George Bush Jr. get it, we've seen Mike Pence get it, his wife get it, Joe Biden will be getting it on Monday, and the current idiot of the United States is sitting there saying, no, until my medical team, the White House medical team, actually approves it, I won't be getting the shot. And I just keep thinking to myself the entire time, it's stuff like this that doesn't encourage it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Barack Obama getting the shot, doctors and nurses and other medical workers getting the shot does show that they're trying to get faith in it. I myself sat there and said, if the data is there, the science is there, I trust the science, I'll get the shot. I have no problem. Because I'm a guy, I believe in science. And Neil deGrasse Tyson said it best. The beautiful thing about science is that it's factual whether you believe it or not. Can't argue with facts. So again, for me, I know I'll get the vaccine once it becomes available, just because the data is there, and it's starting to filter out, which is cool. But optics-wise, the president is not getting the shot because he's saying that his medical team is not recommending it. Does not do well when you're trying to convince other people that this vaccine will help against COVID. And again, I'm not surprised about Dorito because who else is fueling this fire? His favorite news station.
Control our own bodies. They're always telling us that. But no, suddenly the rules have changed. On the question of the corona vaccine, our leaders are definitely not pro-choice.
Strong opinion and smart insight. Tucker Carlson tonight is standing up for
Well, nervously. Even if you're strongly supportive of vaccines, and we are, even if you recognize how many millions of lives have been saved over the past 50 years by vaccines, and we do, it all seems a bit much. It feels false, because it is. It's too slick.
Yes, that was Fox News White Ring News' favorite douchebag next to Sean Hannity, who is basically doing a disservice. But then again, it's Fox News. It's always doing a disservice. But the misinformation, and that's what I keep talking about, is that when people are sitting there saying, well, I'm not going to take the shot, but it's not safe, or they listen to people who are not medical, again, if you're not a research doctor or a scientist or those with a medical opinion, people listen to, and I find this increasingly disturbing. Sorry. I find it increasingly disturbing that, for the simple fact of the matter, people will listen to those without any medical experience or knowledge or research science purposes. They won't listen to them, but you'll listen to Joe Blow down the street who gets their information from a mason jar probably. And sit there and say, well, I'm not going to take the... And the thing about it is, when you see this on national news, like Fox News, unfortunately, it just adds fuel to the fire. It's like, well, she took this vaccine and she got and she had an anaphylactic shock. We don't know. Again, there have been, at this point, hundreds of people have received the vaccine. And with that being said, it's, like I said before, it's been helpful. Like I've been saying, so far the data suggests that Pfizer's vaccine is 94% effective. Moderna's vaccine, which just got approved by the FDA, also being shown to be over 94% effective. The data is there to suggest that yes, it is safe enough for these vaccines to be taken, because I said it last night when I was talking to my girlfriend and her mom. It amazes me how people sit there and say, well, I'm not taking the vaccine. Okay, what's the alternative? Death? I mean, if you're not taking the vaccine, what you think you're going to do? Herd immunity? Let me tell you something about herd immunity. Herd immunity involves a certain percentage of a certain species dying off while the rest of the species somehow develops just enough to where they get past it. Happened with the bird flu, happened with mad cow disease. All these were not solved by us. That was herd immunity. Now, again, a certain percentage of the species has to die off. I don't think we can apply that to the human race personally, because the same, and the vaccination subject is always the same way. Polio was one, measles and mumps, things that could have been prevented. Remember the non-vaccination, those non-vaccination parents? I'm not going to vaccinate my child. And yet, at the same time, measles came back with a force. Mumps came back with a force, because a lot of parents were not getting their children the necessary vaccine shots. Why does my child need all these shots? Because viruses, much like humans, evolve. But then again, this goes back to this whole thing of, well, vaccines cause autism. No, they don't. There's not a record, there's not a single case out there that vaccines cause autism. But then again, what does this all go back to? Misinformation, word of mouth. We don't listen to those that have the education. We listen to those that just sound well because they agree with us. That's how misinformation works. And unfortunately, the only way to combat that is by facts, which is what we try to do here. And of course, moving right along, guys, I just found this interesting because this is not our feel good news segment, but I still feel the need to say this is probably good news anyway. And if you've been watching The Celebrity Apprentice, that is now known as the Trump Organization, one more has bit the dust.
United States, not waiting 37 days until this administration is over. He's leaving. He's leaving now, according to the President of the United States. The President just tweeted this. Let me read it for our viewers. Just had a very nice meeting with Attorney General Bill Barr at the White House. Our relationship has been a very good one. He has done an outstanding job. As per letter, Bill will be leaving just before Christmas to spend the holidays with his family. Deputy Attorney General Jeff Rosen, an outstanding person, will become acting Attorney General. Highly respected Richard Donahue will be taking over the duties of Deputy Attorney General. Thank you to all. So, Caitlin Collins, you're our White House correspondent. This relationship has so deteriorated over the past few weeks, the president making it clear publicly and privately that he had lost total confidence in the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, simply because the Attorney General did things he didn't like. For example, like telling the Associated Press that he did not find any widespread fraud in this election.
And also, Wolf, his latest frustration had been over that investigation into Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, with the president publicly complaining this weekend that Bill Barr followed Justice Department protocol and did not reveal that information in the lead up to the election after it was reported that he had gone to great lengths to obviously keep it from becoming public for fear that it would interfere in the election, which of course is long-standing.
Oh, William Barr, you should have never took the job. Let's be honest about William Barr. He was the president's personal attorney. He very rarely acted in the role of Attorney General for the United States. Considering the fact that he took the Mueller investigation and summarized it down to a single paragraph, pretty much saying the president was exonerated, when the Mueller report, even redacted, sat there and implicated the president on many times that he knew about the interference in the Russian investigation. He also turned around and sat there and interfered in multiple cases. Roger Stone's case, for example, in which Roger Stone was pardoned. Michael Cohen, he tried to basically interfere in that case. Michael Flynn, he also interfered in that case, in which Michael Flynn also got a pardon. And let's not even talk about the fact that that the only reason that he is leaving is because, well, let's be honest, Trump will fire him, even though Trump himself will not stick around for very long. Because again, Trump was banking on Barr sitting there saying, yes, there was widespread voter fraud everywhere. Here's how we can prove it. He was hoping his hardest that he would say that. He did not, and simply because he did not, and of course, if you don't do Trump's bidding, you're out. Don't believe me? Ask Jeff Sessions, because Jeff Sessions did the same thing. Before William Barr, there was Jeff Sessions, and Jeff Sessions did not do the president's bidding because the president wanted the top legal person on his side, and Jeff Sessions wasn't having it. And since William Barr, I guess in his last actions, was actually doing his job and sat there and said no. I could not find any hint of voter fraud, and because Trump was always talking about voter fraud, made him look like, he was basically talking out of his ass. So again, I'm not surprised with William Barr, resigning, because let's be honest, Trump was going to fire him. But again, Barr has probably been one of the more ineffective attorney generals out there since Jeff Sessions. Not sad to see him go, but again, Trump always says he brings on and hires the best and brightest people. At this point, the only person that's still around really is Betsy DeVos and Sleepy Ben Carlson. And I cannot wait for both of them to basically be kicked out of their positions. But moving right along, guys, Biden, of course, after this week, has been confirmed to be the next president. Kamala Harris has been confirmed to be the first black VP, black vice president in history. Now, for all those that don't remember, like I said before, Biden did talk about gun control in his speeches going forward, and just like everything else, gun sales have increased.
6 weeks from today, Joe Biden will be sworn in as the next president. And in addition to the COVID crisis, he faces a spiraling epidemic of gun violence in this country. Deaths have soared this year, and so have gun sales. Tonight in our series, America in Transition, our Devin Dwyer takes a closer look.
For gun dealers like Brandon Wexler of Delray Beach, Florida, 2020 has been a banner year.
When COVID initially, hit the streets in the United States of America, business really started to take off almost, as far as an analogy, prepping for a hurricane in South Florida.
A run on guns in the midst of what experts call a perfect storm. The pandemic, recession, civil unrest, and divisive presidential election, all breeding fear.
I've never owned a gun. I've never wanted a gun. I've never had a gun in my home.
this one, and this one.
Mother of three, Trish Baudette recently bought handguns for herself and her 25-year-old daughter.
It really bothers me when I watch things on the news, when you talk about the riots and the looting and the violence that's happening. To be honest with you, pulling a gun is the last thing that I ever want to do. But I want to know that if I need to protect myself, my family, my children, that I can do that.
An estimated 21 million guns have been sold so far in 2020. That's up 73% over the same period last year. Industry analysts say first-time buyers, many of them women, are a big part of the surge.
My nightmare scenario would be being at home, alone, middle of the night, and it's just myself, and the boys, and someone, coming in to harm us.
Erin Hart, a recently divorced mother of two, says social and political polarization in her community have shaken her sense of safety.
When things start to hit, a little closer to home, it kind of makes you sit up and think about it.
The presidential transition is also a huge factor, experts say, as Democratic President-elect Joe Biden vows to push sweeping new gun restrictions.
Generally, it's true that when we have a president coming from the Democratic Party, that we see higher firearms demand and associated sales, primarily stimulated by the fear that there may be federal legislation pushed through.
So this is one of the common models here.
In March, we saw fear buying up close in Virginia as Democrats in that state prepared to enact the toughest package of new gun laws in a generation.
There's a lot of panic happening. I also believe that the gun industry and the NRA, and to some extent even the administration, are stoking people's fear.
Biden plans a gun safety crackdown on day one, asking Congress to repeal liability protections for gun makers and close loopholes for background checks.
Our enemy is the gun manufacturers, not the NRA.
He also wants to ban production of assault weapons, require registration for some guns, limit gun purchases to one per month, and end all online sales. It'll be a tough sell in a narrowly divided Congress.
I don't know when these laws will be passed, but I think that's put people in I better buy my gun now or I'm not going to be able to ever get it again.
Add to that months of racial unrest that some say has left local law enforcement more timid to respond to crimes, as we heard in Minneapolis earlier this year.
After this whole George Floyd incident, the crime rate in Minneapolis has just skyrocketed. And now they're wondering, why the police can't get there quick enough because there is no police, but yet they want to defund the police.
Last week, the Minneapolis City Council cut $8 million from their police budget. Several other major U.S. cities have pulled back spending on police, but by one analysis, most have maintained or increased police budgets for next year.
The arrow has gone too far the other way on this. So we have to come back to basics and be smart about this.
The gun industry says the perception of defunding police is driving sales.
People, again, are taking a look at what's around them, taking stock of their own security and their safety needs, and they're realizing that their elected officials are abandoning them.
As gun sales surge, so have gun deaths. Already 1,600 more lives lost than last year and climbing by the day. Among the newest victims, 1-year-old Carmelo Duncan of Washington, D.C., killed inside his family's car this month in a drive-by shooting.
We're talking about a 1-year-old. Maybe not even know how to walk yet.
Over the last 4 years, bullets have killed at least 155,000 Americans. Parkland High School, the Las Vegas Strip, a Sutherland Springs, Texas church, and a Walmart in El Paso, 4 of the 10 deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history, all since 2016.
I just saw a man in my community shot and killed, and that culture, me internalizing that, I was just like, that's just what's normal here in Milwaukee, but it shouldn't be that normal. That culture should not be normalized.
Bria Smith was among hundreds of thousands of young people that marched on Washington in 2018, an extraordinary call for action. President Trump promised to respond.
We don't want guns in the hands of the wrong people. I think that the Republicans are going to be great and lead the charge along with the Democrats.
But years later, those promises are unfulfilled. Trump, like his predecessor Barack Obama, unwilling or unable to break the gridlock in Congress, which hasn't passed a major gun safety bill in decades.
Do you believe, Bria, that the 2020 election will be a turning point
on gun safety? I mean, you sound pretty optimistic.
But when you look at the bigger picture, it's making sure that you have administration that cares for you set in place first. I mean, we had our president willingly say on a public debate to, the bad boys to stand by and stand back. It's like this weird romanticizing of gun culture in our country.
That deep-seated culture is likely here to stay, and with gun sales soaring, many advocates say the most urgent need is ensuring safer use of guns already out there and better training for police.
We're starting to really rebrand. Our mission before was to eradicate all gun violence across the country, across the globe. But right now, I think it's just taking construction to reimagine.
Our hope, our prayer is that those individuals are getting some safety training, that they learn how to properly use and store weapons if they choose to keep them in their home.
At WEX, Gunworks safety training is a top priority, which several of the newest graduates say is a smart idea for all Americans.
It's extremely important. I don't want to be in a position where I unnecessarily hurt somebody by my negligence.
I think that even if you don't own a gun, that it's imperative that you take a safety course in handling one. You never know when you could be put in a position or a situation where you would come across one.
And despite the divide over Biden's gun proposals, these gun owners say stronger background checks are something everyone should get behind.
As far as the president-elect, the background checks are the most important thing there is. Everyone gets a background check, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
For ABC News Live, I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington.
And I mean, that's true. But I had to keep saying this because, like I said before, a lot of people, when they hear anything regarding gun violence or anything of that nature or new regulations, gun sales soar. Even now, I'm a gun owner. I'll be honest with you, I'm a gun owner, and I have seen ammo go out the door like it's running out of style. I have seen gun sales triple because, again, people fear that, Biden, even though he talked about it, Biden talked, well, we're coming for your guns. Okay. He didn't say that verbatim. He sat there, but that's what they hear. Whenever hears someone saying about new gun laws or things of that nature, that's all they hear. We're coming for your guns. Which, again, I've always been the first person to sit there and say, well, there needs to be some new regulations. I said universal background checks need to happen at all gun sales. I also sat there and said, you need to have mandatory training and required insurance. I have said that as well. I have nothing against all of that. But it's amazing where people say, well, no, what about the limiting of online gun sales? To a certain extent, yes. But limiting to one purchased gun a month, this is why I say it's going to be hard for regulation to occur to make these things happen. Mainly because there are a lot of people who believe that their guns are their rights, and you have a right to own a gun. Never will argue that. I will always be in 100% agreement with that. But that being said, it is a slippery slope because you're going to have a hard time convincing those in Congress if they can't even agree on a relief bill to help people. Imagine them trying to get together to agree on installing new gun laws and registration. It's an uphill battle, is what it is. But then again, like I said, I don't discourage anybody from not owning a gun. I do encourage them that training and getting insurance is highly recommended. Just because the better you are educated, the less chances of you having an accident or using it or loss of life. I highly stress that wholeheartedly. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into our Feel Good News segment. As we usually do on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk a lot about where, a lot of doom and gloom and things of that nature may happen. But, it's the weekend. It's 1 week before a lot of us have to, well, let me not say that. It's 1 week before Santa Claus shows up. If you still tell your kids that. Yes, I said it. I'm going to leave it alone because Santa Claus is a nice story and it gives the kids something to look forward to. Not that elf on a shelf crap, which again is the creepiest thing you can give to a child. To tell them that an elf is watching them to make sure that they're being good. If that is not indoctrinating them to Big Brother, I don't know what it is. But then again, hey, it's up to you. So, like I said, feel good stories. Like we try doing How the Frack We Got Here. We like to tell stories of this because it's the weekend. Some of us may be off until next year, and if you're not off, then maybe hopefully your day goes quickly. But I do have 3 stories here that are just, that to me are great. And they all seem to be surrounding teachers. I have said this best about educators. Educators is the most honored profession, but it is not given its due. Those that, dedicate their lives to teach children and adults and things of that nature, and especially if you have a knack for it and you're very passionate about it, I will always have a special heart. I'll always have a special, because they encourage me to be the guy that you see today. And these teachers are no exception, especially this first one.
Think about that.
Stephanie Hume has been teaching for nearly 20 years.
Kids are really looking for some reassurance. These are unsettling times for grown-ups and kids alike.
Stability is key.
So when she found herself in the emergency room having difficulty breathing and swallowing, her students were on her mind.
They were like, we're going to have to do some surgery and you have to stay. Well, the first thought that popped into my mind was, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to finish this book within the next couple of days. We were on like chapter 8 of a 10-chapter book.
And that's exactly what she did.
I didn't want y'all to miss the last part of your book.
During her 11-day hospital stay, the 5th grade reading and writing teacher at Sewell Elementary School, who is also a 2-time cancer survivor, didn't miss a beat.
Never had a teacher that would be in a hospital bed and would read a book on a camera.
I was really proud of her as a student.
Hume, now back in the classroom, is part of a long line of educators, including her grandfather, mother, and children.
Can you for a moment talk to those who may be considering teaching as a career and tell them why it is so special?
The moment when you see a kid go, oh, I get it, and that light bulb goes off, and they've understood something that they've struggled with, because whatever challenges are out there in teaching, the reward is so much more.
We'll have to look forward to another adventure very soon. Awesome.
Now, I thought that was great, because how many teachers do you know will literally sit there from a hospital bed and still teach a class? Now, I don't know about you, that's dedication in my mind. But again, I mean, you see the way the kids talk about her, and the fact that the only thing that she thought about as she's hospitalized for COVID was that simple fact of the matter, all she could think about were her kids. You're like, oh, we still got to finish this. We still got to finish this book. And she's teaching from a hospital bed. Again, there are those educators out there that will literally show how much they truly love their kids, and how valuable education is, especially teaching them critical thinking. This next teacher out here is definitely no exception, because he's doing the same thing not only with his kids, but pretty much any kids that watch YouTube.
Place a good amount of
This may look
soda.
like a high school chemistry lab.
Beautiful volcanic.
But it's actually science teacher Jonte Lee's kitchen.
We do chemistry every single day inside of our kitchen.
When his Washington, D.C. school went remote, transforming it into a lab seemed like the best way to bring science to life. With his own money, Lee, now known as the kitchen chemist, also bought lab supplies for his 35 students and delivered them personally.
The only way that I was able to think of doing it successfully was to make it as interactive as possible.
His weekly science experiments have gone viral, now reaching thousands of students across the country, including Blyden Williams in Michigan. The 3rd grader says Mr. Lee is not just an engaging teacher, but an example.
He looks like me, and he does something that I love doing.
1 cup of water.
When he really cares, really cares.
You're finding some brightness in all of this, aren't you?
That's what teachers do. We find a way. We can make something out of nothing.
And he found a solution that works. Rahima Ellis.
And I said, now think about that. A teacher that sat there and took it upon themselves to turn their home into a lab. And honestly, this one reminds me of Mr. Wizard. Mr. Wizard, for all those of my age and grew up in the golden age of PBS, That reminds me of Mr. Wizard, just because in Bill Nye and Beekman's world, science is always cool. And it's like, that's how you get kids into it, to show what you can learn, especially in chemistry. Chemistry was always fun for me because I got to learn to make a baking soda volcano. And I'm sorry, even as a 37-year-old man, a baking soda volcano was still awesome to me to make. Yes, I said it. I have no shame in it. But I love the fact, like I said before, these teachers, these educators, even in pandemics, are finding ways to reach out to kids and to show them how wonderful these different things are. I mean, literature, chemistry, math. Yes, math. And I used to hate math. I used to hate math up until pre-algebra. I'll be honest with you. But teachers are finding a way to make these things interactive and fun. And I can't knock that. I love the fact that, of course, I am a big proprietor of Representation Matters. So a child sees someone like them teaching them, it resonates with them. I think it's the reason why I like Star Trek so much, because I saw Lieutenant Uhura for the first time, and then I saw LeVar Burton play Geordi LaForge, Michael Dorn play Lieutenant Worf, James Avery play probably one of the baddest ass commanders in Star Trek at Deep Space Nine. I can go down the list, because like I said, representation matters, and I get where that young person was getting it from, because they sat there and said it so eloquently, because they look like me. Representation matters, folks. It always has. The last story that I do got, guys, is this one. Like I said before, it's amazing how students, especially as we get older and we go from teachers to professors, they always want to show their appreciation for teachers, and that's the sign of a great teacher when you see stuff like this.
For some reason, I see no one's video. I don't know if it's an internet thing. Does anyone have the video on? Huh. There we go. Hi, guys. Oh, wow. Oh, that's like the nicest thing ever. Hold it. Best thing ever. Hold it. Wait, hold it. I want to take a picture. Oh, you guys freaking rock. Oh, that's like the nicest thing I've ever seen. Okay, I got a good picture. A couple of them. Thanks, everybody. Is that a thing, or was that just for me? I need to know.
Just for you.
Just for you. All right, you guys you totally made my night. No final. Everybody gets 100. We're done. Go. Okay.
Guys, it didn't work.
But it did put a little something in your soda tonight. It's okay. I won't tell. Okay. Wow. Thanks, guys.
Even the smallest gestures, guys, are always more accepted. And that's actually the sign of a great teacher, when you have your students come back and literally just simply say thank you. And especially if you make an impact. And I've said this before, teachers can make impacts on students' lives. And it is a undervalued profession, just because of everything that those teachers do. You basically pour your life into someone else, and hopefully make them great adults. Because I've always said it best: great teachers will always produce great adults, just because they don't give up on their kids. And of course, I guess in my case, I do have a special place in my heart for educators, because they definitely don't get paid enough for all that they do. But I love seeing stuff like that, just because there are those teachers out there that truly do care, and that's always going to stick with me. So, that being said, guys, that's actually going to be it of the podcast for this week. I do thank everybody for watching. Before I do get out of here, I did do some shameless plugs. I'll start with my buddy Vaughn, who's watching this. My buddy Vaughn has a Facebook page. You can like it. He likes people most of the time. But Big BZA Dot is his page, and if you are on his page, definitely go to his videos to where you can see his podcast. I'll start with the first one called The BSTs of the Intercast. What is the BST? It's similar to my show, except that Vaughn calls himself a big-ass kid. I am also a big-ass kid. And he loves to talk about things that basically big-ass kids love. Video games, movies, and trailers. I call Vaughn the king of the weird trailers, because he always finds the most interesting ones out there. But that show that he has with the BSTs, it's an interactive show just like mine, as you can see that I comment on this one. So definitely give that a shout. Also, he has the Random as Fuck podcast. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of rashes we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry, but they're always to a theme. My personal favorite is still F. Donald Trump. Why? Because you will see videos like this, where Trump supporters sitting outside the election office praying for them to stop counting the votes. You'll also see videos of Kenneth Copeland giving the weirdest laugh since Evil Henchman. Don't believe me? Well, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but let's just say that is the most evilest laugh I've ever seen this side of bad guys in superhero movies. But Vaughn usually does play videos like this for entertainment, sometimes just for shock factors, but always it's interesting, and definitely give that a like and see. Also, he does have another show which we hope will be coming back once he comes off his hiatus, as the Rhythmness podcast. What is Rhythmness? Vaughn is a musical connoisseur, and trust me, he is, because there have been many times me and him have had debates over music, and he decided to make it into a podcast where him, myself, and others listen to music that we ourselves suggest or Vaughn brings up, and we usually grade them to a 4-tier rating system. Now, me and Vaughn are different on the musical scale, but at the same time, like I said, differences in musical taste lead to great conversation. That's what Rhythmness Music Podcast is all about. And finally, he has another pop-up show, which he has been doing a lot. And that pop-up show is called Fonkin' Around. What is Fonkin' Around? Well, it sounds like this. And that's my buddy Vaughn and his setup. Don't mind his setup, because when you got a mess is a sign of a genius. And when you're a genius, nothing is ever clean. Trust me, I know, so I can't knock him for his setup. But Vaughn is a beat maker. He likes to make beats. He likes to tickle the ivory keys, if you will. Why? Because he is very talented. He is a very talented musical person, and he likes to show the process of how he came to these beats from beginning to end, and then again also showing the final product. And that's what Fonking Around is about. He sometimes sings on there. I think I played one where he was singing. I don't know which one it is, because he usually does Fonking Around almost on a daily basis now. So if you are a fan of musical progression and you are a fan of beat making, and I think Vaughn may be entering that pool once more, I hope he does, you can definitely check out Fonking Around. All of his videos can be found on his Facebook page at BigBZA or BigBZA on all social medias. He will be coming back with new podcasts very soon, so definitely look him up to see when that's going live. Now, as far as yours truly, I do a few podcasts of my own. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast. It's my IT storytelling podcast, which I tell stories from my IT background that are meant to be entertaining. And if you find it funny, then great. If not, then you need to lighten up, because I'm probably talking about you. But always entertaining with stories, in this case. Of course, there will also, strange programming announcement, after Get Bit this Sunday, we will be taking the week off next week from podcasting because it's the holidays, but we will return after New Year's. So, just to give you guys a slight programming announcement on that one. But anyway, aside from Burned Out Podcast, as you can see every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast you're currently watching right now. Tonight will be the Off Limits podcast, in which we will talk about misinformation and how it affects people. Of course, on Off Limits podcast, as the name implies, we talk about anything and everything, and I do mean anything and everything. Why? Because it needs to be talked about and it needs to be informed. And trust me, we are definitely going to go there tonight. And of course, this Sunday between 7 and 9 p.m. is my Get Bit podcast. That is my Blur podcast, in which we talk about everything video games, everything comics, anime, superhero television shows, because trust me, with the Mandalorian ending, we are going to talk about that ending. And of course, various things, like I said, for us in the world that actually first affects blurs. A blur being a black person, a nerd put together equals blurred. So if you're a blurred or a nerd, or just something, or just people that just like certain things, then hey, Get Bit Podcast is for you. All of my shows can be found under my Facebook page at William Buchanan, or their own Facebook and YouTube pages. So whether on Facebook or YouTube, just look them up by their names. Also, the link right at the bottom here, if you copy and paste that into your YouTube page, will take you to the How the Frack We Got Here site on YouTube, to where you'll be able to see all my videos there. So definitely like, share, subscribe from there. But if you ever want to look them up by their names on Facebook or YouTube. That is the Burned Out Podcast. That is How the Frack We Got Here, the Off-Limits Podcast, and Get Bit. That is GITBIT, to be able to see every podcast that I've done thus far. Before I do get out of here, guys, I do have to say this again, and I will keep saying this until it's no longer a thing. COVID-19 is real, people. I mean, you are now seeing it in full form. Even though vaccinations are starting to happen, again, guys, we still must be vigilant. Wear a mask. It is not that freaking hard. A lot of you wear masks behind closed doors. If you can wear a mask behind closed doors, you can wear a mask going to Walmart. It's just that freaking simple. Also, social distancing. Please try to avoid large crowds, as if going to Broadway right now. Avoid that if you need to. I understand. People are Christmas shopping right now. It's the final countdown toward Christmas. All I'm saying is, I understand that you want to get things for your loved ones, but at the same time, please be safe. That is the only way we're going to get out of this to where it helps people. So, do social distancing if you can. Please also wear a mask. Please try to avoid large crowds if possible. At the same time, guys, let's think of others. I mean, for this to be the holiday season, we're supposed to be thinking of others anyway. Let's really put that to prime and try to help out, because right now ICUs are overloaded and they just seem to be getting worse and worse. And vaccines will take time for them to be distributed to everybody. I really hope everybody does get the shot. Please do not sit there and be a dumbass because you think something's going to happen if you get the vaccine. There's been a history of vaccines where literally and figuratively no deaths or anything major has occurred. Let's just be honest about that. Also, aside from that, like I said, for those in the medical profession, if you see a doctor or a nurse, nurse's aide, doctor's aide, environmental people that work in the hospitals, just simply say thank you. They don't get enough. They are overworked. They are stressed out. As you've seen from the articles I've played, as you've seen from the videos I've played today, they are emotionally and mentally and physically drained. Simply saying thank you does go a long way to let them know that we do appreciate their service and diligence, because honestly, they should be given the world right now. Also, in the same sense, like essential workers, I'm talking educators that are teaching in classes or remotely. I'm talking truck drivers that are still on the road, even through winter blizzards and everything else. I'm talking those that work in retail, those that work in grocery stores, those that work in gas stations, those that work in logistics right now. Logistics. Those that work in logistics like United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, DHL, who are right now slammed because this has been the biggest online ordering season since in the last decade or so. You know, they're having a wonderful time right now. And I'm also talking about those that work in warehouses like Amazon, which again, because of the holiday season, everybody ordering, are slammed as well. Essential workers are right up there. They're not getting their due diligence. And at the same time, like I said, if you see them, just be nice. Be nice and try to work with them, especially if you're getting food. I understand fast food and how they can goof up, but let's try to extend a little bit of patience, a little bit of kindness, because patience and kindness does go a long way, and we need to try to do that. So, hopefully do that as well. And like I said, guys, again with the programming note, we will still be doing an Off-Limits podcast tonight. We still will be doing a Get Bit this Sunday. But after Get Bit this Sunday, like I said, we will not have any podcasts until the new year. So, that's what we're going to do for this moment. We are going to take the next 2 weeks off just to enjoy the holidays, the holiday season. So, I will go ahead and say this. We're just going to go down the line. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Festivus. I think I covered everybody. But yes, if like I said, we will be back after the new year. We'll be back in the new year. Like I said, we're just taking the time here to take breaks, to take a break from podcasting, to spend time with family for the next 2 weeks. And like I said before, we'll come back after next year, but we still will get our last 2 podcasts of the year done. That being said, guys, like I said, if you can spend time with your family, definitely do so. But basically treat each other with kindness. It's not that fucking hard. So I'm going to go ahead and get off of here now. Like I said before, thank you all for watching, all of those commented live. And if you're watching this on the playback, feel free to comment as if it's live. I still want your opinions. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I'm open to equal criticism either way. Aside from that, guys, like I said about how the frack we got here, we're not trying to influence you. We're not trying to persuade you. We're not trying to bring you to our way of thinking. We are simply informing you of the facts and allowing you to make up your mind for yourself. An informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump. An informed community got us Biden and Kamala Harris, who have to spend the next first term cleaning up 4 years of mistakes. But those 4 years feel like 12. But we're going to get through it. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you have a good weekend. It's been fun. I'm out. See you guys on Off Limits and Get Bit.